Why suffering doesn't happen to you. You happen as suffering, Buddhist wisdom. Chapter 1. You never had a you to suffer with. There's a story we've been told for most of our lives. A quiet but constant voice in our head says, "This is happening to me. I am hurt. I am broken. I am not enough." It feels personal. When sadness comes, it feels like my sadness. When someone says something unkind, it feels like they hurt me. That voice builds a whole identity around these experiences. And from that identity, suffering is born. But what if the core of this story isn't true? What if there was never a solid you at the center of it? Modern psychology has something interesting to say about this. Neuroscientists have found that a part of the brain called the default mode network becomes active when we think about ourselves, our past, our future, our identity. This is the part of the brain that says, "I should have done better," or "Why is this always happening to me?" When this network is overactive, it creates a strong sense of being a separate self, a me that's constantly under threat, always comparing, always judging. This brain network isn't just a narrator. It's a ghostwriter, silently authoring a biography of a self that was never truly born. But here's the thing. This sense of self is not fixed. It's more like a habit of the mind, constantly building a story around what happens. In early Buddhist teachings, the Buddha pointed to something even more radical. In the Anatalakkhana Sutta, he looked closely at what we call the self. He asked, "Are form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness truly ours?" If they were, he said, we could control them. We could tell our minds not to be anxious. We could command the body not to age, not to feel pain. But we can't. These things arise, change, and pass on their own. So how can we call them me or mine? When we feel sad or lost or angry, we often say, "I am suffering." But look closer. Is there really a solid I behind that suffering? Or is there just a thought, a feeling, a reaction, passing through, like clouds in the sky? The Buddha wasn't denying experience. He wasn't saying pain doesn't exist. He was pointing to something much deeper, the absence of an owner of the pain. This is the ultimate paradox. The pain is undeniably real, but the one who claims it is a phantom. Think about moments when you're completely absorbed in something. Maybe you're listening to music, or walking under trees, or holding someone's hand in silence. In those moments, there's no voice in your head saying, "I am me." There's just experience. No self, no problem. But the moment the mind returns to the idea of me, suffering returns too. It's easy to feel like a victim in life. Why does this always happen to me? But these are not facts. These are roles, mental positions the mind takes. One day we feel like a failure. The next day we feel proud. Are we both? Or neither? The mind doesn't just create these roles. It auditions for them, wears them like costumes, and then forgets it's even acting. The mind builds these roles based on memory, on emotion, on habit. They feel solid, but they're not. Here's something strange but deeply freeing. If there's no fixed self to experience suffering, then suffering doesn't really happen to anyone. It just happens. It arises when certain conditions are present, and it fades when those conditions end. It's not yours. It never was. When we truly see this, not just in theory but in direct experience, a huge burden starts to lift. The voice that says, "Why me?" grows quieter. We stop taking thoughts so personally. And suffering, which once felt like an attack on the self, is seen for what it is, a passing pattern, not a personal punishment. As the Buddha said, "This is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself." Chapter 2. Suffering is a verb, not a thing. We often think of suffering as if it's some kind of object, something we carry around like a heavy bag on our back. But what if suffering isn't a thing at all? What if it's something that happens, like raining or burning or falling asleep? Not something you have, but something that happens, like a verb. In early Buddhist teachings, the Buddha described suffering as arising through a specific pattern. In the teaching of pratitya samutpada, or dependent origination, he laid out a sequence. Ignorance leads to mental formations. Mental formations give rise to consciousness. Consciousness leads to name and form, then to the six senses: contact, feeling, craving, clinging, becoming, birth, and eventually to old age, death, and sorrow. Each part depends on the one before it. No part stands alone. It's a cascade, a chain reaction happening so fast that we mistake the entire blur of motion for a single solid object we call my suffering. There's no separate thing called suffering in this chain, just many small movements that add up to an experience. It's like fire. Fire isn't a thing. It's heat, oxygen, fuel, and a spark, conditions coming together. Modern psychology shows that we often suffer more from how we react to emotions than from the emotions themselves. Sadness by itself may just be a wave that comes and goes. But the moment we start thinking, "Why am I always like this? What's wrong with me?" we create layers on top of the original feeling. We trap it inside a story. By resisting, we are not protecting ourselves. We are feeding the fire with the very energy of our struggle. The mind holds on to the memory of sadness and turns it into an identity. I am a sad person. That's how a passing moment turns into a mood, and a mood becomes a habit. This is something we can see clearly in meditation. When we sit in silence and pay attention, not trying to fix or control, but simply observe, we begin to notice that sensations rise and fall. Heat, pressure, tightness, tingling. Each one appears and then fades. No sensation stays forever. The same is true for emotions. What keeps them going is our resistance to them. The moment we push against a feeling or try to escape it, we feed it. But when we stop holding on, even just for a moment, a different kind of clarity arises. You notice that you're not drowning in sadness. You are clinging to the idea of sadness. And when that idea loosens, the weight drops. This doesn't mean we pretend that pain doesn't exist. Pain is real. Loss, illness, fear, all of these are part of life. What the Buddha pointed to is that the way we relate to these experiences creates either suffering or peace. One person feels fear and freezes. Another feels fear and breathes through it. Same emotion, different outcome. Think of it this way. Suffering isn't like a shadow following you around. It's more like a song that plays when certain instruments come together. Take one instrument away, just one, and the sound changes. The melody shifts. In the same way, the moment you stop clinging or stop pushing away, even slightly, the suffering loses its usual shape. You are not a container of suffering. You are the movement in which it arises. And with understanding, with gentle observation, that movement starts to slow down. Because suffering is not a weight you carry, but an action you perform, moment by moment, often without even realizing it. Chapter 3. You are not in suffering. You are the suffering. People often ask, "Why is this happening to me?" As if suffering were some dark cloud that comes from the outside and settles over us. But what if the question itself comes from a misunderstanding? What if suffering doesn't happen to us, but as us? We usually think of ourselves as standing apart from pain, as someone who feels it, watches it, suffers because of it. But when anger arises, do you feel like you have anger? Or that you are angry? In those moments, there's no distance. There's no observer. There's just the heat of the feeling, the tightness in the chest, the clenched jaw. The idea that you are a person having an emotion comes after. In truth, you're not in anger. You're not having sadness. For a time, you are the anger. You are the sadness. This is not a judgment, but a precise observation of fusion. For that moment, the energy of the emotion and the sense of you have merged into one inseparable experience. The brain doesn't hold a solid central self. Instead, it operates through patterns, habits of thought, memory, and reaction that create the illusion of someone being there. These patterns are like grooves in the mind, shaped by years of responses, beliefs, and expectations. A person who always expects rejection might unconsciously act in ways that bring it about. The role becomes part of them, the rejected one. But that's not a real identity. That's a response loop. The Buddha saw this clearly. He said, "Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief." Every moment of anger, fear, or craving isn't just a feeling. It's a kind of psychological rebirth. Each reaction creates a new version of ourselves. In a flash, we are born again, not in a new life, but in a new role. The critic, the wounded child, the one who needs to be right. With each reaction, we are not just playing a role, we are casting ourselves in the same play, over and over, and then wondering why the story never changes. We often don't see this happening. When grief shows up, it doesn't just visit you, it speaks through your thoughts, tightens your body, colors your words. You become grief. When shame arises, you don't simply feel it. You move as it. It guides how you look, how you speak, how you shrink. This is not meant to blame. It's saying, you are how suffering continues. And that's where the opening begins. Because if we can see this process, we can stop mistaking it for who we are. The first time you catch yourself in the middle of anger, not reacting, just seeing it, it's like stepping out of a dream. You realize, this isn't me, it's just what's happening. There's no need to push it away or to hold on to it. Just watch it move, rise, fall, fade. Think of it this way. You don't carry the emotion. You embody it. When fear speaks, it uses your mouth. When sorrow moves, it borrows your body. But if you don't identify with it, if you just let it pass, then you're no longer trapped in the role. These patterns are old. They're familiar. Sometimes they even feel safe, but they are not you. They never were. They are only conditions coming together for a while, like clouds forming a storm. And storms, no matter how loud, always pass. The freedom lies not in stopping the storm, but in realizing you are the sky through which it passes, not the storm itself. You were never just a person watching pain come and go. For much of your life, you were the pain in motion. But now for a moment, you are simply aware. Chapter 4. Liberation is the disappearance of the sufferer. Sometimes we think freedom means having no pain, no sadness, no confusion. But from the Buddhist point of view, true freedom is not about removing what we feel. It's about removing the one who clings to those feelings. Pain is part of life. The question is not, how do I stop pain, but who is it that suffers? The Buddha never promised that pain would disappear. What he pointed to was something more subtle. That suffering doesn't come from pain itself. It comes from holding on to the idea that this is happening to me, to the belief that I can't handle this, or this shouldn't be happening. Pain may come, but without a fixed self to own it. Pain is just pain. It passes like a cloud in the sky, intense, but empty of an owner. The sensation may be sharp, but the story attached to it, the story of poor me, is gone. It is what some call clean pain, free from the residue of self. In the early teachings, the Buddha explained this with a simple yet powerful image. When you touch fire, it burns. But if there's no hand reaching toward it, no grasping, then the fire just burns on its own. It's no longer my burn, my pain. There is no me trapped inside it. This is why enlightenment is not about becoming a perfect version of yourself. It's about seeing through the idea that there was ever a separate self in the first place. It's like waking up from a dream where you thought you were a character being chased. When you wake up, the chase ends, not because the world changed, but because the dreamer vanished. Even an awakened being may feel sadness or physical pain, but without the attachment to "I am this pain," it no longer becomes a prison. It passes through like wind through open air. The most subtle trap is our desire to escape suffering. Ironically, the more we try to run from pain, the more tightly we grip the identity of the one who suffers. We chase freedom, not realizing that the chase itself is the problem. The mind whispers, "I must fix this." Because every effort to escape secretly confirms the belief that you are a prisoner who needs to be freed, strengthening the walls of the very prison you seek to leave. But the more we chase, the more we affirm the one who is being chased. There is a line in the Zen tradition. When you let go of the idea of escaping, you are already free. In that letting go, something beautiful happens. We no longer see ourselves as victims. The pain is not gone, but it no longer defines us. It becomes something we can understand, even transform, not by force, but by presence. In Buddhist practice, this is like turning mud into a lotus. The mud doesn't disappear. It becomes the condition for beauty. The lotus doesn't fight the mud. It uses it. Your deepest wounds, seen with this gentle awareness, become the very soil from which your wisdom can grow. When we stop trying to be someone, the one who wins, the one who heals, the one who escapes, we make room for something deeper. We don't become blank or emotionless. We become spacious, open, alive. And in that space, we may finally understand. Suffering never really belonged to us. It arose through causes and conditions, and it disappears in the same way when we stop claiming it as mine. You were never the one who suffered. You were simply the pattern of suffering arising, moment by moment, waiting to be seen and let go.